The Green Goblin. That's it. That's the video. Done. Okay, we all know the Green Goblin is Spidey's #1 villain. He's the guy who dresses like a goblin and rides on a glider, the guy who likes Peter more than his own son, the guy who will do multiple things to make Peter's life even more miserable. Norman Osborn, the man of the hour. Green Goblin is personally my favorite Spider-Man villain. Sure, that might be a basic opinion, but I really just love Norman as the Goblin a lot and what he does to Peter and his loved ones in the story. And when you look at that, in issue 850 of the current Amazing Spider-Man run, Norman is returning as the Green Goblin for real and not with the Carnage symbiote, because it's been 2 years since that bad Dan Slott story, and with him being an absolute carnage, which actually was a neat story last year. My first introduction to Norman Osborn was seeing reruns of the 90s cartoon and the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. It wasn't until later on I started reading comics, and the first Spider-Man run I read and truly stuck by was Ultimate Spider-Man. You see, Ultimate Spider-Man is really a mediocre in my opinion after reading it once again and again and again, but to me there was always one thing that I disliked and wasn't a fan of at all from the first time reading it: the Green Goblin in this universe. Ultimate Green Goblin is something I'm not fond of at all in terms of the execution and how they decide to make his abilities. Appearance wise, at first glance you might think, hey, that looks like a cool version of the Green Goblin, but you then realize he's basically just a demon-sized Hulk who can shoot fireballs somehow. Also, someone please tell me how he looks anything like a goblin and not some green demon that just needs to be killed.
What the hell is this?
Kill you!
My soul is saying it wants to stop you!
Die! Die! Smoke is sexy style!
I want to know why Bendis chose to do this kind of version for the Ultimate Universe's Green Goblin instead of at least making it a little close to how the original looks. Sure, Ultimate Goblin looks more intimidating and scarier than 616, but other than looking scary, does it really matter? I mean, what Norman in 616 has done to Peter was Gwen Stacy's death, since past, orchestrated the death of Peter's daughter and the whole clone situation, the Sinister 12, Dark Reign, and Siege when he took over the world and had Sentry destroy Asgard. The main problem with 1610 is that his motivations suck most of the time, because they always change when he comes back. One time it's kill Peter, kill his loved ones, or something with S.H.I.E.L.D., which feels very basic, like Villain 101 for a character like Norman Osborn. Along with that, Norman Osborn never really felt like he was smart. He just seemed illogical from time to time. A friend of mine said that Norman Osborn in 616 is a man obsessed with having a strong legacy and was disappointed in his son and others for not promising that, and with that he has a love and hate relationship with wanting Peter as his legacy while also ruining Peter's life and trying to end him, which is something I agree on. Norman in 616 was crazy, but he was never what I call stupid or illogical. Let's not forget the number of times Ultimate Norman says how he created Spider-Man, or he's his father, because he just put the Oz formula in a spider which accidentally bit Peter while he was on a field trip. Actually, let's talk about Oz real quick. The Oz formula stuff. Okay, it was originally an attempt to recreate the super soldier serum for S.H.I.E.L.D., a spider that was mutated with Oz bit Peter and gave him his spider powers. Alright, they decided not to go with the radioactive spider kind of thing. Not that big of a deal. But apparently anyone that's just affected to the chemical itself just becomes a monster goblin, which is kind of weird in how we got Harry as the Hobgoblin and Mary Jane becoming the Demo Goblin, or big hairy monster, orange monster, for a short time. And lastly, Otto now having the ability to control metal after the Oz explosion that fused his metal arms to his body. They could have just did that and not add the fact that he controls metal and that he's basically Magneto also. But one thing that they introduced in Miles' run back in 2014 that I hate from Oz is the sense that you're basically immortal, or just with a really good healing factor. It's just a lazy excuse to bring Peter and Norman back for one story in that short run. I get that comic characters never really die and come back from the dead, but seriously, that story was only made for sales, and Bendis just did a thumb thing like, hey that Death of Spider-Man story I wrote doesn't matter at all, Oz makes you immortal. Which after that leads to questions like, how is Harry still dead since he was affected with Oz? And is Miles immortal too, basically, since he got bitten by an Oz spider? Bendis really made something like this last second and for shock value with no explanation and leaving Marvel to DC. So that's great. Or maybe it'll just get retconned. Real quick, I want to mention something about Ultimate Goblin and what he's doing now that I found funny. In Miles' current run right now, there's this villain named Ultimatum that is just 616 Miles Morales that returned from the Ultimate Universe clone world, or got restored. I don't know. That whole reveal was from like Spider-Man 2, which was again from Bendis, and he just left that with no explanation or anything while he went to DC. Anyways, it's even funny that now Ultimate Goblin is just a reduced lackey, basically, and just a generic villain monster. Like, I never really liked this Goblin, but man, they really downgraded him a lot. He'll probably stay this way forever, somehow a writer will make him good and give him tomorrow's as an actual villain. I decided to just make this video because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about this version of Norman, whether they love this version or hate it, along with multiple people saying that this version should be in the MCU. I personally disagree, but if they try to do a monster Goblin in the MCU for Peter, I can't believe I'm saying this, but go with what the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show did and mix both 616 and 1610 Goblin together. All him just being just as smart and not dumb, but that's what I personally think. And so yeah, I guess this is the end, and I don't know how to properly end it, so stand 616 Goblin and bye.